We have a lot of fun doing that.
One of my favorite things about this year.
Okay. Okay. The early 70s were, we had some pretty good teams in 70, 71 along in there. The Buskirk brothers were on those teams, Lee Ray, are some of the names I remember. And we had a really fine coach in those years who went on to be one of the outstanding Mississippi football coaches, Booty Sloan. And then we had sort of a lean year in there, which really sort of began a downward slide for the football team in New Albany. But we still had some great players. Will Caltharp went on to Mississippi State and played. My brother Steve McAlilly and I both went on to Millsaps and played. We had a lot of guys that went to Northeast and played. Probably my best friend and I came to New Albany the summer of 1969. We were in 8th grade. Ricky Martin. And Ricky and I played all the way through. And unfortunately, Ricky lost his life when we were in our 20s. But we had wonderful, wonderful time. Coach Jack Stanley was our head coach. And I remember a game down in Pontotoc when we'd had sort of a rough go of it there in the middle of the season. And Coach Stanley gave one of the most inspirational pre-game talks I've heard. And he told us we had too much guts, and he used an adjective in there, to give up. And we took the field, and we played our hearts out and ended up tying the ball game. But it was a real good game, and of course we won our opening game that year, 1973, the fall of '73. My senior year, we won our opening season game against Ripley. We won 7-6. Charles Kitchens ran a punt back for a touchdown, and I was fortunate enough to be the kicker, and I made the extra point, and we won 7-6. And we played against a player that went on and was an outstanding player at Ole Miss, James Story, who had played for Ripley. We had Bill Daniels, Weenie, played defensive end for us, and Charles played running back. Ricky McCollum was our quarterback, and I played left guard, and Larry Montgomery played left tackle. And Larry and I miraculously both are in the ministry now, probably because of the influence that Hall Wilbanks had on us. But the great thing about those years was Coach Wilbanks had been our junior high coach, and he graduated from junior high with us and went on to the high school. And probably of all the coaches that I played under during those years, Coach Wilbanks had one of the most profound influences on my life. And I will always consider him a great friend and a great inspiration. We didn't win a lot of games. My senior year, we came in close several games. We were probably within a touchdown or an extra point or a field goal of turning a 3-6-1 season into a 7-3, 7-2 season, 7-2-1. The thing I remember about those years a lot is that we had great players, and with just a little bit of luck, we could have won. We could have won a lot more games. Went down to Starkville my senior year, and we had about an hour and a half, 2-hour rain delay, and it was just a flood that night. And we played Starkville. In fact, we were ahead of the game at halftime with Starkville. And they, of course, in those days, they just took the Little 10 every year. And they had a big old guy that I had to play against all night long that went on and played at Alabama. Used to beat my brains out that night. But we ended up losing the game 16-13. And we played we had some great plays. We played hard. And just with a little bit of luck, we could have turned that game to our advantage. my junior year, we had Will, as I said, Will Caltharp, and we had R.C. Smith and David Fitzpatrick, who were good linemen. Of course, J.T. Ray was on the team, played wide receiver, and my brother played defensive back and split end some. We had, of course, Charles Kitchens played quarterback, and we played a game in Aberdeen that year that was just absolutely the coldest game of the year. And unfortunately, Aberdeen had a tough week before we played them. We had to play them down there. And it was their homecoming. You don't ever want to play somebody on their homecoming. And they had 6 players that had walked off the field the week before we played them. And they came back the night we played them, and they just hammered us. And it was a tough. We don't want to put this in there, Kelly. We'll forget that part. I'm just thinking about games and things. I think about.
Now, you played on work field your whole career.
Actually, I did not play. Let's see. Yes, I played on work field. That's correct. I practiced at the high school. We played at the old field, and.
Do you remember the new field being built?
It was built after I graduated. I think it was built my senior year after I graduated. And the first year it was played on was my freshman year in college. 'Cause I remember coming back during Lynn's senior year and watching her cheer and maybe be homecoming maid. Of course, after my career there, homecoming queen. Lynn was homecoming queen. Yes, she was, Queen Lynn. But I think we hit in the mid '70s. We peaked and it went downhill from there, and we had a lot of lean years in the late '70s after that. And it wasn't until later, maybe the '80s, when Coach Jones became the head coach that things began to turn around. But great friends. Kurt Saul, and of course Will is still a good friend, and Charles and Weenie and Larry and Ricky and David Kent and Tim Kent and Richard Kent were all great friends and great players.
Do you remember your homecoming game your senior year?
Let's see.
I don't remember who y'all's queen was. Was that Jeannie?
Jeannie Gossett was the queen.
That's the year they didn't announce it till that night.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah. Gosh, I don't remember much about the game. Apparently it wasn't a good game, so I blocked it out.
I don't think if that was the last homecoming on work field.
I'm sure it would have.
Well, who was after her?
Lynn.
Was she? I'll say.
Yeah.
So that's neat that
Yeah.
she was the first.
Yeah. I think that's right.
Well, that's plenty.
I don't know.
Superintendent of the schools, and he'd always